Hey, Cubs fans, and welcome to a brand new edition of Cubs on Tap. Holy shit, we are talking about a freaking awesome game tonight. The Chicago Cubs won a baseball game. Guys, they won a baseball game at home for the first time since July 26th. Oh my goodness, it's literally been almost a month. And they finally win a baseball game. We're going to dive into every aspect of tonight's game, but before we get going, I am Ron Luce. Joined tonight by the one and only undefeated when joining Cubs on Tap, Joey Ricotta. How are you, sir? How's it going, man? What's up?
I'm great, Ron. It's a win, man. It's a win. Yes, they are undefeated when I'm on the podcast, the live stream, the post-game show.
Legendary.
Not to toot my own horn, but, dude, we got to see a freaking walk-off tonight and ended this long home losing streak. So, yeah, it's great, man. I'm great.
Yeah, I too am there. So as people that are watching can see, the W hat's already on. Not even going to try and smack it on tonight. It needed to be proper because it's a proper occasion for it. I'm rocking some blue sunglasses, and I'm just here to have a good time. And that's how we're feeling right now because the Cubs won a baseball game, and it's so nice when they win a baseball game. We get to talk about it, and I am so excited right now to be wearing my Rafael Ortega jersey after he hit the 2-run home run to walk this thing off. And so let's dive right in, Joey. Obviously, the storyline of the night is Rafael Ortega, bottom of the ninth, runner on, nukes this ball into right field, talks his shit, does the bat, throws the bat down. He's fired up. Everybody's juiced. And the Cubs win 6-4. They won a baseball game. It's awesome. It's great. But holy hell, how about Rafael Ortega? Again, just such a freaking fun, just story about this season.
Yeah, man. I mean, I've been saying it on Twitter. If you see my hashtags, Cortega, all the time. Anytime he does anything, it's Rafael Cortega. I don't care. And you have to send me a jersey still for my birthday. We talked about that.
Sure, we did.
But the dude's still hitting over 300, I believe. He really hasn't quieted down that much, and he hits a freaking walk-off. It solidify his spot on the opening day roster for next year right now. He's making the roster next year. I don't know if it was really in question by the way he's been playing, but I think, yeah, dude, we just got to see something that we haven't been seeing at all this season, and it's awesome, man. We needed this type of energy. We really needed this energy. I think we're about as low as we can get from a fan base perspective, at least lately. So this is big.
Yeah, I mean, let's be honest. We are as low as we can be. I wanted a new jersey, and I bought a Rafael Ortega jersey. I think that's just a good indication of kind of where we're at as a Cubs fan base. Not a shot at Rafael because he's having a great season, but it's fun. Again, I saw somebody tweet tonight on Twitter, I forgot that the Cubs winning baseball games is fun. I think it was Bleacher Jeff on Twitter, and I was like, yeah, it is fun because you and I talked about it a little bit before we jumped on, right? Hendricks still goes 7 strong innings. Sure, he gives up the 4 runs, but he was just dinked and dunked to death. Didn't walk anybody tonight. Cubs pitch staff as a whole didn't walk anybody tonight, and gets 6 strikeouts and has a really good outing. But he's probably going to get the loss because the Cubs just sucked. And then no, instead Hoyer comes in and pitches a lockdown 8th, which things you love to freaking see. I feel like I've become one of the biggest Cody Hoyer stands in Cubs fandom, and I'm sure all the White Sox fans hate it. But
that's right. Let him hate it.
Great. Yeah, he looks great. And then on top of that, Manny Rod comes in, locks it down after the Cubs put up 3 to tie the game. Michael Hermosillo, are you kidding me? Just great shit all around. And then finally, the Rafael Ortega bomb. I mean, this is that, like you said, this was the type of energy from this game that Cubs fans needed just to give you that boost. It's the dog days of summer. We're in the end of August. Yeah, we needed that little kick in the ass as just ooh, we're back. We're alive. We're feeling good. I feel like I don't need morning coffee tomorrow now because I got this Cubs walk-off victory that I'm going to ride as a high for about the first 7 hours of my day tomorrow. It's going to be great. I can't wait for it. And I mean, let's talk a little bit about Kyle though, right? You wanted to discuss it as well. I mean, just consistency is just the key with this guy, at least in my eyes. And I think that's why he's probably the most underappreciated baseball player in all of Chicago. I mean, at least as a pitcher, you know what I mean? Like, I feel like there's other guys, I will admit on the South side that, are a little underrated, I think, in the general, media fandom. But
Mm-hmm.
overall, like, I mean, Kyle Hendricks, he's never been to an All-Star game. Are you kidding me? Like, this dude led the majors in ERA in 2016. Like, he's no punk. He's a good pitcher. He's just unconventional to today's game where everything's gas, gas, gas. And he's very underappreciated, but a hell of an outing from him. I mean, what were your thoughts on Kyle's outing today?
I thought, like he started a little slow, obviously. But the first inning's kind of been his bugaboo for like in the outings that he's had as even just rough outings, or, he settles down in some of those games too, like he did tonight. I mean, yeah, he started out a little bit rough, and, I don't like that Conner-eyed Joe fella too much, but yeah, I mean, he's just that. He's our ace. He is an ace, and he's Mr. Consistent all the time. And yeah, Boog was mentioning on the broadcast how he thought he was throwing more four-seamers tonight, but it was really actually just like two-seamers up in the zone.
Mm-hmm.
And, I'm not sure if that was game plan driven, or if that was just because he's experimenting with some other things right now, given where the Cubs are at in the standings and how they're doing right now. And that could also be a thing too. I mean, I know that he does throw those two-seamers. He likes to run them like from the left-handed batters, run them back towards the inside part of the plate. And sometimes he'll throw them up in the zone too. But that's something we didn't see from guys like, for example, Jake Arrieta. He just refused to throw his two-seamer up in the zone and just always tried to bury it down the zone. And hitters nowadays, what are they going for? Launch angle, uppercutting, swinging at the bottom. Their swings are from the bottom of the zone up. It's not high ball hitters really in the game. So I like that he's doing that, even though maybe the results weren't as great maybe early on. But 7 innings tonight, I mean, what more can you ask for from Kyle Hendricks?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, just a guy that you want to get more out of. And speaking of more, I enjoyed this. This is really funny in our comments. A lap joining us. We need some Ortega.
What up, Lap?
Reiteration of the Rafael Ortega as well.
In there too. Ortega,
yeah.
Let's go.
There's a good question in here, and it kind of relates to what you said about Rafael Ortega being on this roster next year in some capacity. And it's from our buddy Arcaldi 1908. So does Wisdom and Schwindel, with their control, have more value to the Cubs or via trade with broke teams? Interesting thought there. I think in general, we can probably unpack that a little bit as its own kind of element of the question. But do you think, I personally think Ortega has just as much value potentially as these guys. They don't have to be on the roster the whole season. They can be replaced late in the year by guys that are, younger or coming up or whatever. Like, I think we've seen that a couple of times with some of these other guys. I mean, hell, we saw it this year with Jake Arrieta, right? I mean, eventually just the young guys were coming in to pitch and, and Steele and Thompson, and bada bing, bada boom, he's off and out in San Diego now. And maybe that happens with one or two of these guys next year. Maybe a Frank Schwindel, maybe an Ortega, but I guess answering the core of the question, what do you think? Do Wisdom and Schwindel have more value to the Cubs, or is it truly Ortega? I mean, or are they all the same? What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I think we could just kind of bundle them all together right now for this question. I think right now it's tough to gauge, right? Because I think Wisdom is a legit dude that just needed an opportunity, and he needed some time to figure it out, and he's figured it out. I would say he's more valuable to the Cubs at this point in time in this rebuild with the control. Schwindel, I'm still a little bit skeptical on, even though I want to see more and I like what he's done. I'm just still a little bit skeptical if this could be kind of fraudulent. And the quality of contact is there, so there's no way to say that. I'm not saying what he's done is actually fraudulent. It's not like he's getting lucky in these games or anything. But I just don't know if this is a hot stretch or if this is really Frank Schwindel. Ortega, he strikes me as this guy that he just puts together professional at bats, and it's a contact type of profile. Yeah, he hit the walk off tonight, which is huge, but that's not really his makeup. It's more get on base, protect the 2 strikes. He is kind of that prototypical leadoff hitter that we've been missing. So I would say he's valuable to the Cubs, right now and going forward, and we'll just see what he has. Schwindel, maybe that is a guy that you flip, because I feel like, you can find power at the corner position, like first base, and Wisdom plays a heck of a third base defensively. We saw it again tonight, for example. He's just terrific at third base, I think. I think if there's one guy out of that group that I would be willing to trade, I agree with Dope Redbeard here. There's a guy at third next year for Wisdom. Yeah, I think he is. And I don't see anything changing, honestly. I think the Cubs kind of believe that too right now, the way they're rolling him out there. And, you saw him dancing before the game and stuff. It's a vibe right now. I think Schwindel could be that guy that gets moved, but, I don't know. We'll see. I think you just ride it out right now. We'll see, cross that bridge when we get there this offseason.
Yeah, absolutely. I think right now you look at every great team that's happened, and just in general, right, in baseball. Like the years that they're down and not good, they always have those guys that just become fan favorites. You know what I mean? Like overall, whether it be, I think back to like the Cubs in like the early Theo days, and like Reed Johnson was a guy that everybody really liked, even though you knew he never had a future with a competing Cubs team. But like he became a fan favorite, and it was a guy that people enjoyed watching. And I think that's
DeJesus.
Yeah, David DeJesus is another good one. Ryan Sweeney. I mean, hell, they both landed themselves jobs. It was DeJesus first with NBC Sports Chicago before they lost the Cubs' rights. Yep. But then and now it's Ryan Sweeney and some of these other guys, that Carlos Pena, you know what I mean? Like Matt Garza, like those guys that you kind of need to get through the rebuild type thing. And it really feels like, but they're going to provide value. By the way, my arm hair stood up when you mentioned Rafael Ortega, prototypical leadoff hitter, and thing that Cubs haven't had in a long time. That was right. I need that in just, can you like infuse that in a Jello shot for me real quick? And
I'll send it over.
Rip them. Okay, cool. Because that's energy that I need. That
again, by the way, I don't think we even need to crack them. By the way that we the energy that we have, but I would like to crack them because I just actually want to drink this right now. Wasn't even planning on drinking tonight, but the walk-off kind of charged that up for me a little bit. So
I respect that. I totally respect that.
Hashtag crack them.
Hashtag crack them, baby. I dabbled a little bit earlier. I had a beer or two this evening. So yeah, no, I feel you. It's a good celebratory one. Was that is it Untitled Art?
No, good try though. It is Invincible by Icarus. So
interesting.
I actually got this while I was out in Jersey. The weekend of my girlfriend's birthday, we went out there, and dude, it's a local brewery out there. It is fantastic. It's a pale ale. Highly recommend. Just gonna say that.
Noted. If the On Tap gang is ever in New Jersey, I'll be sure to check it out. But yeah, man. I mean, going back to your point, obviously we always are here to take those crack 'em breaks on Tap Sportsnet. But going back to your point with again, these guys needing to be a part of that rebuild. Like you need these guys to fill the lineup and at least be competitive and be guys the fans can enjoy, because essentially they're holding spots for the future, right? Like to me, a guy like a Rafael Ortega is holding a place for either a Brennan Davis or somebody of that nature. And maybe again with some of these pitchers, is Alec Mills holding place for Caleb Killian next year? You know what I mean? You need those guys though that are still important and to be a part of that. And Schwindel accomplishes that right now. Maybe he's the one that doesn't come back, maybe just because they picked him up mid-season, and Ortega and Wisdom were already in the system entering the season. They knew they had that depth at AAA. They came up with Alcantara at the time when those three were filling in for injuries, and the Cubs were still competitive. Wisdom went on that crazy stretch where he was hitting 400, and Alcantara had a bunch of extra base hits real early, and then Ortega was the average wasn't there right away, but as he started playing more regularly every day because of injuries and then the obvious sell-off,
Mhm.
Now you see what he can do when he actually can put together consistent days and at bats. I think he was just a guy that wasn't great cold off the bench, but played a good defensive outfield on the days that he did fill in. So it's like you just need those guys, right? And they're so important. I truly believe like that question is really interesting because I think you need those guys to be a part of the future to hold places. But a guy that I want to talk about, maybe we could talk about them together, but are two of the guys that we could very well see on this next great Cubs team that Jed Hoyer and company are building. A Cody Hoyer and a Manny Rodriguez as high leverage arms in big time situations. And I have a Cody Hoyer rabbit hole that I want to go down here in a second, but I want to get your thoughts before we do on these two guys tonight, because again, Cody Hoyer comes into the 8th inning, shut down, gets a strikeout, no problem. And then Manny Rod comes in and does it in the 9th to, he gets get through guys like Trevor Story, like actually good hitters, not just, the crap of the Rockies lineup. And, and then Ortega takes care of the rest at the end and, makes me actually put the jersey on tonight. But those two guys were just as important in the win tonight as a guy like Ortega or a guy like Kyle Hendricks or, Wisdom and Michael Hermosillo, who I think we're going to now start seeing a lot of almost every day in some part of the outfield. Maybe he just always relieves a guy who wants a day off, whether it's, Ortega in center, Happ in left, or Hayward in right. But I mean, you needed those two guys tonight, and I see the future when I look at those two. So, we talk about guys that won't be here for that next great Cubs team, but what about two guys? What were your thoughts tonight on two guys that very well could be a part of that next competitive Cubs team?
Well, I'll start kind of in reverse. I think I would love to see Hermosillo get almost regular starts. Maybe not even just filling in for guys that need off days, but I don't really need to see Hayward at this point this season, to be honest with you. Like I know he's going to play a little bit, but we don't really need to see him out there. We kind of know what he is, and he'll be on the roster next year probably. I'm sure the contract says he will.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Ain't that the truth? Ain't that the truth?
Right. So so you'd like to see him kind of turn it around a little bit. You want to give him some playing time, but I mean, Hermosillo, that was a huge hit for that young man. I mean, that's probably the biggest hit of his young career to this point. So, starting there, but going back to your point, the guys that we really want to see, on this next great Cubs team, as Jed keeps saying, keeps calling it or whatever. Hoyer and Manrod, these guys, they're now putting together a nice little stretch here of just shut down baseball in the bullpen. I mean, I was looking at the numbers a little bit. I don't have the exact numbers of the stretch that they're on, but going back to last Tuesdays, because we really haven't been able to see them much in high leverage roles because, let's face it, the Cubs haven't given them the opportunity to be in high leverage roles because they haven't been winning.
Mm-hmm.
But going back to, I think it was last Tuesday's game, we saw Hoyer pick up a 2-inning save, a perfect 2 innings of pitching. He picked up the save there. And then Manrod, if I'm not mistaken, the next night with the shutdown opportunity. And they've kind of been doing this a little bit more regularly. They're getting more comfortable here with the big league squad. I mean, Hoyer obviously switching over. He's still in the bigs, but, switching over to the north side. I think you were onto something as we were talking earlier about him with the Cubs working with him and knowing how to use him and develop him properly, because that's just kind of what they do, especially with relief pitchers. They've been really good at that. But I mean, I love what I'm seeing. Hoyer's got filthy stuff. He's just nasty. And Manny, when he's locating, I mean, that 99 four-seamer in on the hands, you can't do anything with that. The 97, 96 mile per hour darting low and away from you two-seamer, you can't do anything with that. If you make contact with it, first of all, good luck. And second of all, it's like a pop-up somewhere or something. It's not, I think Yadiel Hernandez from the Nationals got a little bit lucky. It was a great piece of hitting, but when he took him a yard on that pitch that was in on his hands, basically. But I love to see it from these guys. That's something to build upon, and hopefully we get to see more high leverage roles. or opportunities for these guys, because that's what we're going to see a lot more of next year, hopefully.
Yep. I 100% agree with you. And it's actually something that Cody and I talked about on yesterday's show was we just want to see these type of high leverage situations for these guys, because these guys need that development and that work and that time. And if they're already on the roster, you might as well let them have those situations if you can. And when you're winning ball games, or at least close in ball games like tonight, Ross had a good feeling with, some of the, getting the bases loaded earlier in the game. Sure, only plating the one run, but like he was like, okay, hey, I feel pretty good about my guys tonight. Like, I'm going to give Cody this chance to lock it down. And then the bats came through and they tied the game. And then obviously, Ortega takes care of business then in the ninth. But I mean, it's incredible. And something that I wanted to mention about Cody Hoyer, I tweeted this out. We kind of foreshadowed this, but he kind of reminds me almost a little bit, and bear with me, people that are listening to this before you start making judgment, but he reminds me of like Chad Bradford with the Moneyball A's. And I say that where, he was like looked at as like, oh, he throws funny. So like, it literally is like it's like the ugly duckling story. It's like, because he throws funny and it's not conventional, nobody wanted him, but he was effective. And Billy Beane was like, I need guys that I can sign for a little money that nobody wants. And he's like, but I know he's going to be a gem. And he was very good for that Oakland team. And I feel like Cody Hoyer can be that in Chicago, because I feel like from a pitching perspective, since Kantrovitz was in Oakland at one point, they've kind of adapted some of that money ball approach with pitching. And, again, they get a good trade, value in return for Craig Kimbrell and a guy like Madrigal, who's going to be your leadoff hitter for probably the next decade. Who knows? Maybe he hits two behind, with Ortega, and you just get a nice, two guys on for your power hitters every single time. But
wouldn't that be nice?
Yeah, but like everybody was like hoping for like Garrett Crochet or like, one of the like more notable names, or like, of course, people were like, oh, Kopech, which everybody knew it wasn't going to be Kopech, but
it's never going to.
But at least like people were hoping maybe there was a chance it was Crochet. And like I had heard there was a report too that like somebody tweeted it. Now, granted, whatever is true or not true about it, but like that maybe at one point in the conversation they were like, "Hey, we'll just do Kimbrel for Crochet straight up." So again,
that's interesting. Yeah,
people wanted a bigger name than Cody Hoyer coming from that bullpen, but like Cody Hoyer was really good in 2020 in his rookie season last year, and then sure he struggled a little bit with the Sox, but like we've seen the Cubs do this with guys who throw funky, and when they get told to change it at all, they don't throw as well. And a guy named Jake Arrieta was that for the Cubs when he came over in 2013. They told him start throwing your normal, like way you throw, because he had the weird like cross body movement like Basio had when he was a pitcher. And then, they turned him into, he was a Cy Young pitcher and a World Series winner. And, like that is something that we've seen the Cubs do before. And now that they have the pitch lab and everything too, it's like, it feels like Cody Hoyer, just because he has a funk in his delivery, maybe is a guy that teams were just willing to kind of give up on and not value as highly because of it. Or they were trying to tweak him too much and change him. And the Cubs are just like, nah, man, you do you, boo-boo. You throw however you need to in order to get results. And that's what he's doing. So that's kind of my little take on Hoyer. And quickly, before I get your thoughts on that, I want to say your memory is incredible, because August 17th, Hoyer had the 2-inning outing. And then literally the next day it was Manny Rod, which kudos. That's impressive. Holy crap.
Well, I was also on the post-game show for the Cody Hoyer 2-inning save. So I can remember these things, but
yeah.
Otherwise my memory sucks. If it's not Cubs related, my memory sucks.
Yeah, you're like me then. You need to write everything down in like your phone or something. I'm a terrible I'm terrible habitually like that. But I mean, what are your thoughts on that idea with Cody Hoyer? Because again, I feel like he just got so quickly written off this year. Again, here at OnTap Sportsnet, not only do we cover the Cubs, but we also have a great team that covers the White Sox on the other side of town. And so we get to talk to these guys a lot within our group channels and things like that. Sure. And a lot of people were, and I'm also, for whatever godforsaken reason, like a lot of White Sox people follow me, and I think it's just the OnTap association thing. But nonetheless, like I saw a lot of Cody Hoyer slander in the beginning of the year, like, he's not that good. We can't trust him. TLR can't put him in high leverage situations. Like, And I think his confidence might have gotten broken a little bit just because he started off rough. Like, he's still super young. And, he comes over to the Cubs now, and they're like, hey, man, we like you. We value the shit out of you. Like, you go do your thing and see where that takes you. And he's starting to do it, and it's super impressive. And, like, I firmly believe that Cody Hoyer is going to be a gem of that Craig Kimbrell trade. I think in a couple of years, Cubs fans can confidently go back and say, at the time, the White Sox got exactly what they needed in Craig Kimbrell, which, although he kind of blew the game for them tonight in Toronto, but we're not going to talk about that.
Well, yeah, I don't think they're using him properly. I'll just say that.
They're not, but we'll let TLR figure that out on his own. Yeah. Nonetheless.
Or not.
or not, and we'll see. And then he'll be shamed by all of White Sox fandom. But nonetheless, I think we're really going to see then in 5 years from now, people look back on this trade and go, wow. Like, at the time, it paid off for the White Sox, but then when the Cubs needed it to pay off when they were building the next great team, it did. Like, I truly believe Madrigal and Hoyer are going to be huge parts of this team moving forward from a competitive standpoint. So
I could see it.
Yeah. I think he could really be a diamond in the rough for the Cubs out of this bullpen where, everybody's like, wow, they totally depleted their pen by getting rid of Tepera, Chafin, and Kimbrell. But, like, you just installed a pen that's not only young but cost efficient as well. Mm-hmm. And it's like, I see you, Jed. I see you, Dan Kanchovitz. I see you guys doing things behind the curtains and you're, little methodical mwahaha laughs and things like that as they do things. I saw somebody tweet tonight about the Kimbrell. It was reactions of White Sox fans to Kimbrell giving up the 2 runs against Toronto. And then it's a picture next to it is Jed Hoyer with a big smirk on his face. And I'm like, okay, that's kind of funny. Like,
I gotta see that.
Are we gonna have that kind of reaction to this trade in a couple of years? I honestly think we might because I'm that high on Cody Hoyer.
We could, and here's the thing, adding to your point about the funkiness of the delivery and all that. Number one, the fact that if they were writing him off a little bit, I mean, obviously they viewed him this season, same with Madrigal. I know he was hurt, and that was a big part of it too. They viewed these guys as kind of expendable, right, for this season. Because Hoyer obviously didn't have as much success this year. I think a lot of that was unlucky, but also, we got to remember, he's a young pitcher pitching for a competitive team, a team that's trying to win it all this year, right? Yeah. So switching to a team like this, like the Cubs that are in rebuild mode and nothing's really like, it's high leverage situations. That's what we want to see him in more of. But he's gaining confidence by these other outings and by playing on a team that's really not. It's not every pitch is not like life or death. Like nobody's going to lose their minds if the Cubs lose because they know the Cubs are supposed to lose right now, right? Mm-hmm. So he gets a chance. He gets an opportunity to build with this team to when they start getting good. I think that's the best situation for a guy like Hoyer, because, he can grow as the team grows. And then by the time that you actually need him to perform, when the stakes are at an all-time high and you're ready to compete, he'll be there. He'll be ready, I think, at that point. And to go back to your about the delivery thing, Chad Bradford, I mean, he used to, like, his knuckles were like scraping the mound. It was just ridiculous. Yeah. But I get it because it's such a weird delivery with Hoyer. So the comparison's crazy. I get it. He's like that guy that, like you said with Arrieta, a lot of times coaches of other teams or scouting departments and whatever, they want to make them as traditional as possible, right? They want them to have the most complete delivery and optimal delivery and what a pitcher is supposed to be. But like with guys like Arrieta and guys like, Hoyer now we're talking about, sometimes that's just not what it takes with them. Like you just, whatever you do. And like you said, and a perfect example of that is it's a guy like Joe Nahas in the Cubs system. He's a big Codify guy. And what does Codify do? Codify takes what you do really well, and they look at heat maps and stuff, but they figure out what you do really well and how hitters react to what you throw and what pitches and what sequences. And they try to optimize that, and also with your mechanics, but how your mechanics play with everything. So I'm not saying that they're using Codify. I'm sure there's a potential or possibility that they are with Hoyer, or Hoyer is using it. But I'm just saying, I think the Cubs have a really good gauge on stuff like this. They know how to optimize what a player does really well, and pitchers in particular, what they do really well, what makes them succeed, and getting the most out of them. And like a guy like Joe Nahas, who is pitching pretty well in the minor leagues right now. So,
sure is.
Yeah, man, I'm all for it. I think Hoyer, just keep doing what you're doing, man, because it's working right now.
Yeah, 100%. And like I love what you said about like the Cubs being able to, you know, like make these guys just pitch better because they pitch to just who they are and what they do well. And it reminds me just like, or it brings me back to a point that I said on a recent podcast, might actually been yesterday, is that like I really think there's a chance this Cubs next great Cubs team is built in reverse of what the first one was, where they paid for pitching and developed hitters. And instead, I think now they're going to the model of they're going to develop that pitching and just go pay for hitters. And I really think that's what we're going to start seeing. And I think we might see that at least for the years 2022, 2023, maybe even 2024, because they could go spend some money over the next 2 or 3 off seasons. Again, maybe they're not pulling in a $250 million contract, but maybe they're pulling in the example that I used was, and even something that Cody and I talked about on yesterday's show as well. Sunday's episode was a loaded one, just like this one will be. So if you're listening to this one, go back and listen to that one too. And I can't go back into that episode and say, if you're listening to tomorrow, you should, or today, you should listen to tomorrow too. But you get it. But that's what I would do. We'd loop this thing back together because literally Cody's, brought it up of this, like, they're going to be so young pitching wise, and you don't need to go spend a ton of money. He's like, think about Jorge Soler. Maybe he comes back because he's struggling this season and has shown that power, which is what the Cubs need. They're going to have plenty of contact hitters. The literal reverse of what this Cubs team didn't have for the last few years was guys that could just slap the ball and get on base. You potentially have 3 of them on your roster next year in Ortega, Madrigal, and Horner. Yep. And they just need a couple of those power bats. Maybe you get a Jorge Soler on a team-friendly deal, like a Jake Arrieta type deal, 1 year, 7.5 team option for year 2. Maybe it's something like that. Maybe they bring in a guy like Tommy Pham to play a season here. He's a little older now. His numbers aren't fantastico, but he's good enough for what he's getting paid. He's getting paid like I think 6 or 7 mil. So like maybe you bring him in a little more than that for a year. And a guy that you can flip at the deadline too. We saw how good the Cubs were in the first rebuild at doing that with guys like Paul Maholm and guys like, granted they had to do that because they didn't have these prospects to come in yet. They needed to go get some of those guys. But like now you have those prospects. But so you can literally just trade these guys away for depth even further down the future to keep that pipeline going, and then let one of these young kids come and slot in. Like maybe we like in the pitching rotation next year, like there's a very good chance we see guys like Caleb Killian. And even if it's in the bullpen with Killian, Jensen, maybe even Jordan Wicks, like he's finally started throwing, debuted at top 6 on the Cubs top 30. Little foreshadowing. Yeah. I have a top 30 prospects re-rank article coming out very soon, hopefully tomorrow. But
nice,
shameless plug. But like we very well could see these guys, and then they can go spend some of that money. To what Dope Redbeard had to say here. With we need the DH next year. I completely agree with that.
That would help with Soler too.
Oh, my friend. No disrespect to solar power, but fuck Jorge Soler. This is what I want. Thank you. Thank you, Matt McClure. You read my mind, sir. Bring me Castellanos. That's what I want. Let Nick get paid $25 million a year. Why the fuck not? You can afford it. The only major 100%. Contract you have on this team is heading into next season is Jason Hayward. Yep. And what is the next largest contract after that? Kyle Hendricks, maybe at like $13 million a year. Yeah, you literally have no money committed next year compared to this year when you were entering the season. Go out and say fuck it. If one of the 3 that you traded away at the deadline aren't coming back, and Baez, Bryant, and Rizzo, which who knows, maybe Baez actually is the one that comes back because he gets a discount to come back to where he succeeded. Because he's not playing that great. Like. Okay, sure, maybe he comes back for 13, 14, 15, 16 million, but like you can still go spend it on Nick. And if the DH is coming, why the fuck don't you spend it on a guy who's going to be talked about potentially in the NL MVP conversation this year? Maybe he doesn't win it, but he should at least be in the conversation of it. And like, that's what I want. I want to see him back in Chicago. And you know why? You know why I want to see him back? Because I need Greg Deichmann to change his number. He needs to take 6 back. And the reason he needs to take 6 back then is because my jersey that's sitting in the closet becomes relevant again.
There we go.
That's what we need to happen.
It all goes back to Ron's jerseys.
It does. It does. I have Ortega. He's going to be here next year now, and it's actually going to let me wear it in the next season. I have Kyle Hendricks. Lovely, lovely. I do have a Jason Hayward. So, hey, that one's secured.
That's locked in.
Yeah. So, like, go get me Nick. Go give him that 4 or 5 year contract for the big money. Let him just be a DH and maybe play the outfield 2 days a week. And just make me the happiest Cubs fan on the face of this earth. Because I'll tell you what, even if they go like 86 and whatever next year and, only are 4 games above 500 and are like maybe sniffing the division conversation where I think we would like them to be next year in terms of the rebuild, just give me Nick hitting like 35 bombs on the wavelength every day. Give me that energy. Give me bat spikes and, interacting with the fans and the bleachers and give me my nostalgia back, damn it. I need Nicholas Castellanos in a Cubs uniform like I need freaking oxygen right now. Like, it is that just it's what I need. It's
Castellanos, man. Dude, he brought such a fun, like, when he was playing with the Cubs with the chain and him running around the bases and just, dude, it was a different time. Like, yeah, to bring the nostalgia back, bring back Castellanos, bring his brother back.
Yes.
Dude, Castellanos, and someone was saying something about, well, they could use some more slug. Perfect with the slugging, obviously, terrific slugger. But he's also not just a slugger. He hits for average. I mean, you're talking about him being in the conversation for MVP.
He's hitting over 300.
This guy is a hitter. He's not just a slugger. He's a hitter. Like,
he is. He's Nicky Two Bags.
Nicky Two Bags, dude. Yeah.
Dude lives to hit doubles.
Lead the league in doubles when he's with the Cubs.
Yeah.
So, yeah, Nicky Two Bags. Bring back Nicky Two Bags. Can definitely afford him. Then you got that right-handed outfielder hitter. I mean, I'm okay with, like, if they brought back Soler too. Realistically, with the DH, you could do both. You could have one out there in the outfield that's, like, suboptimal.
You put him in left field. You put him in left field.
Put him in left field.
Put him in left.
Fine. Put him in left field. Then, the conversation really starts from there. Then you start going to a guy who had a great night tonight and who's actually killing the ball. He's hitting 387 in his last 10 games with 3 home runs, 7 RBIs, I want to say 5 walks, and a couple doubles. Ian Happ. So what do you do with him then? Then that becomes the next question that we can get into a little bit, because if he's rediscovering himself, and I know he's had a ton of opportunities, but this really is his worst season in the big leagues. He's been above average offensively every season he's had. So, I mean, and last year was like his coming out party, we thought. Mm-hmm. We thought, okay, now that's the real Ian Happ. It just wasn't a full season, so we really couldn't see where he was going to go from there. Mm-hmm. He kind of started to tail off once he took a pitch off the eye, I believe it was. Then he kind of started to tail off after that. Yeah. But if he's rediscovering himself, man, you add in Ian Happ to that outfield. Now you're talking about Ortega as like a 4th outfielder or something. And you're talking about
feed me that.
Castellanos. You're talking about maybe Soler. You're talking about Brennan Davis coming up.
Say it again.
That's a hell of a start, right?
Right.
Say it again.
Well, and this is something too that Juice and I have talked about on here before, was like a lineup that includes Nick Madrigal, Nico Horner, Patrick Wisdom for some of that slug, because that's what he's going to give you. The average might be 250, but the slug's going to be there. Mm-hmm. Nick Castellanos, Brennan Davis. Maybe you do plug Soler into that. Now all of a sudden, at least you have a team that's got some pop, and then you got Ortega, who's a high contact bat as a 4th outfielder. Like, that's a team that I think can sniff 86 wins, especially if the pitching starts to come along. If Justin Steele and Keegan Thompson truly a part of the rotation going forward, Hendricks will be, Mills probably will be at least for another season. Who's your number 2? Do you go pay for a guy like Marcus Stroman? Do you go spend a little money on pitching? You get that 1 or 2 vet pitchers for when you got all these young kids coming up.
Like I've got an idea about that too, by the way, but I'll save that.
Yeah, well, and here's another good one, Alzolay. Yeah, there's no saying that Mills needs to be in the rotation. There's no saying that Steele or Thompson are in the rotation necessarily either. One of them can be a better bullpen arm. Maybe that's the role they take. I think Mills is ultimately the most destined for that, just based on age. But yeah, you still have Adbert, who, you're trying to develop and bring along. Like, there's a lot of talent in that rotation without having to spend a ton of money. Maybe you go get one guy. So why not go pay for some hitters? And yeah, that's a lineup to me that at least can sniff. That's a team that can sniff 86 wins and probably finish within 5 games of first place for the NL Central.
Absolutely.
Especially depending on what the Brewers do in the offseason, because who's to say that they're going to be able to keep all these guys that they got at the deadline? They probably won't. You know what I mean? Right. And everybody's another year older, and Yelich and whatever. Maybe they're not as good next year. Maybe it's like when the Cubs won with like 83 wins. Back in like 2007, they won the division with like 83 wins or something like that. Maybe that's the type of season it is for the NL Central next year, and then the Cubs start getting some of these kids coming along. Owen Casey and, Alexander Canario, whose thighs can crush coconuts. Like, it's going to be electric, and I'm totally ready for it. But options, man. And it's going to be something, I'm telling you. But, kind of going along too with tonight's game. I mean, I think we've hit on everything. I think we've dove really deep. You know what the best part about this win is? Like all of it. But now that we're coming to the end of talking about it, sailing into our next day, you know what? You know why that buzz is just going to keep going for Cubs fans? It's Justin Steele Day, baby.
Oh, let's go. I didn't even realize it was tomorrow.
He's taking the mound against the Rockies tomorrow. And he's going up against Marquez, who's their best pitcher. So if he's got that bulldog, as Joe Maris likes to say, that Southern anger bulldog on him, like, he's going to come out tomorrow and pitch like a dog, and it's going to be awesome. And I'm here for that. That's just going to keep the groove going, man. Who needs coffee? I don't need coffee tomorrow.
Yeah,
I got tonight to ride into tomorrow, and then just ride the Justin Steele wave for another Justin Steele start. I am fully prepared, but
I'm ready,
Joey,
for Steele. Yeah,
I will turn it back over to you really quickly. Any final thoughts on this incredible walk-off win for the Cubs tonight that snaps a 13-game losing streak at the friendly confines?
Well, I guess real quickly, I'd like to say that the one guy I would like to see the Cubs pursue, and I'm probably going to write something about this later on.
Foreshadowing.
Foreshadowing for sure. And shameless plug again too. Is Dylan Bundy. So last year, Dylan Bundy, he really showed why many people thought that he could be an ace, right? The Angels gave him a little bit of money, not a whole lot, but they invested in him. Not even really long term. He's a free agent at the end of the year. They at one point in the season they moved him to the bullpen because he was struggling this year. Last year, though, he was really good in the shortened season. And with the Orioles, he always had the potential. He gave up too many bombs at Camden Yards. But that breaking ball, the slider is just wicked. Like, he has stuff, and I feel like that is the type of guy that the Cubs, if they get their hands on, they can harness that and turn him into something. Because we've seen him do it with guys before, and we've seen him do it with an Oriole before. So – I'm just saying, 2 Orioles. Yeah, Strop
and Jake. Yeah.
Oh, man, I'm telling you, Dylan Bundy, I think for a cheap contract in the offseason, that's the guy that I really want to see them go after. But as for this game, the reason why I took the Cubs plus 110 first 5 innings, minus a half run line, because the obvious, Kyle Hendricks was pitching against the Rockies, who aren't very good. Antonio Senzatella, we made him look like a Cy Young candidate for the first, I don't know how many innings, and it was kind of ridiculous. But more on that, and I wrote it down here, so I'll just pull it up real fast. The Rockies were 2-8. Their first game on the road to start a series, leaving home, Coors Field. We know about Coors Field, leaving the altitude there, the Coors effect, it's real. They're 2-8 in those 10 games with 19 runs scored. They've been shut out 4 times, and they're only averaging 1.9 runs per game in that first game away from Coors Field. So I thought, man, Kyle Hendricks on the bump, and then the first inning was like blew up in our face. But it doesn't matter because they ended up with a win. So that's all that counts. But it was just like, what the heck are we doing giving up 4 runs to these guys that they just, like, the only game they scored more than like 3 runs, I think, was against the Dodgers, believe it or not, on the road, which is just odd. But anyways, for this game, yeah, Ian Happ, the bullpen, Hendricks is Mr. Consistent, Rafi Ortega, just, dude, it was awesome. I don't know, that's all I got.
No, I agree with you there. I have a quick thing, and then I do want to read a couple comments before we go ahead and preview Justin Steele's start tomorrow. Worth noting. In the month of August, Cody Hoyer with the Chicago Cubs in 9 games has a 1.64 ERA.
Love to see it.
He's been very good since he became a Chicago Cub, and I am going to foreshadow that there might be a Chad Bradford, Cody Hoyer deeper dive analysis type piece in the works for moi this week. Okay. But it makes me smile, and I really believe that's going to be good. Quickly rattling through a couple of the comments. Question from Brad Mason: any concern with Horner always getting injured? Cody and I talked about it on yesterday's show, kind of at length. I don't think it's fair to tell a guy who hasn't even played a full major league season over the span of 3 seasons in the big leagues in terms of games, calling him injury prone, because he's really never been injury prone before this season. And one of those injuries is because him and Ian Happ decided to crack skulls. So, like, I don't know. I think it's too early to deem that he's always getting injured. I think it's just this season he's been hurt, but a lot of guys have because of the shortened season to this year. So it's hard to look at it with a magnifying glass right now, I think, overall.
Yeah.
Oh, let's see here. First pitch tomorrow, Aaron, my good friend, the dope red beard. What time's first pitch? 7:05. Or, well, it should be 7:10 because the Cubs do 7:10. And it is. Or no, it is 7:05. I was right. Haha. I am smart. Yeah, I am smart sometimes. This comment's fantastic from our friend Matt McClure 81. I was worried my W flag would be eaten by moths. Quite comical.
Or dead long legs.
And then a great, interesting thing from Aaron once again as well. The Cubs are also really good against NL West teams at home this year. Said Marquis had a graphic earlier in the game. Oh, speaking of Marquis and graphics, we would like to mention that Cubs on Tap. Hopefully you enjoyed our tweet tonight talking about Giovanni Soto and Aramis Ramirez throwing off first pitch, giving us 2008 vibes, as that made the broadcast, and Boog agreed with it, which was kind of cool and tough. Nonetheless, that Marquis had that graphic, but 3-0 against LA at home. Yep, the sweep that forced Cody to eat mayonnaise. 3-0 against San Diego soon after that. And then, 2-1 against Arizona coming, I believe it was right out of the break or right before the break. I think it was right before the break that they might have done that. So certainly worth interesting to note. And the next NLS team that'll be in town will be the Giants and Chris Bryant the weekend of September 11th. Yeah, and I will be there on September 11th. I'm very excited. I already have tickets.
Nice.
I'm probably going to have to wear a Chris Bryant jersey that day, even though it's 2 sizes too big for me and it's going to look like a dress. But maybe we rock RAFAEL Ortega and I wear like my Bryant T-shirt underneath, and we give some love that way. But
you take off the jersey when Bryant's hit and then put the jersey back on.
Yeah, there you go. Not a bad play. That might be the move. Yeah, buddy of mine, big White Sox fan. We're finally doing the crosstown Red Line series for the day. Cubs play at home at 1:20. Sox play at night at like 6:10 or whatever. So
it's gonna be bad
against the Red Sox. It'll be a pretty sweet day of Chicago sports. But nonetheless,
I need to try that sometime. That sounds like fun.
It's something him and I have talked about for years, and like that was the only Saturday this entire season that it worked for both of us. And so we were gonna pull the trigger on it. We did. So that's gonna be interesting. But nonetheless, getting us back on track before I get way too far off into some just deep dive rabbit hole somewhere. Let's go ahead and let's preview Justin Steele's start tomorrow. So let's do this, folks. As we mentioned, the Cubs and Rockies do play again at beautiful Wrigley Field. It's 7:05 Central Daylight Time on Tuesday, August 24th. Usual suspects, once again, if you're listening out in the Rockies market, KOA 8:50 a.m., AT&T Sportsnet Rocky Mountains, and then in Chicago, it's 670 to score WRTO 1200 and Marquee Sports Network. As we mentioned, Justin Steele, the left-hander on the mound for the Cubbies. He is 2-2 on the season. Both of his wins coming as a relief pitcher, both of his losses coming in his last 2 starts with the big club. 3.22 ERA, 27 Ks. He's still showing a lot of promise, a lot of bright stuff. Looking forward to his 3rd start this season, and just how he's going to look. And then German Marquez, as we mentioned, 11-9 on the year, 3.80 ERA, 151 Ks. He's been very good, by far their best pitcher for the Rockies. So he takes the bump for them tomorrow. So Joey, I would love to know your thoughts and what you're expecting out of tomorrow's game, and who is your fly the W pick before we go ahead and get out of here.
Well, I just really want to see a good outing from Steele. It's Steele Day for a reason. I'm interested to see how he utilizes his pitches and how often he throws what pitches tomorrow, because obviously he was really heavily fastball slider out of the bullpen. Now, since becoming a starter, he's becoming more fastball. 4-seam slider, 2-seam, he's mixing in curveballs. He's been mixing in some changeups every once in a while. So sorry about that. My girlfriend's just getting home and the dogs are going ape shit. But yeah, so I guess they like Justin Steele too.
There you go.
But yeah, I'm interested to see how he uses pitches and how often he's throwing what tomorrow to these Rockies hitters. And German Marquez is no slouch, man. We know he's their best pitcher, and especially away from Coors. I think he's had a lot of bad luck from being at Coors and playing for a team like this and those elements. Because if he was on another team, I think we'd be talking about him as being up there with one of the aces in the league, and we would be holding him in higher regard than we are as a league. So he's going to be tough tomorrow. I think, honestly, I know he's strikeout prone, and I know it's going to be tough for him against Marquez, but got to go with a lefty against him. Ride the hot hand. Not the one that walked it off, though. I'm going with Ian Happ. That's my fly the W pick.
Yeah, Ian Happ, 3 hits tonight. He's raised that average for the season now to 195. So creeping closer to 200, which I think a lot of people believe if he's going to even be potentially in the plan for this team next year, he's got to at least get that average a little above 200 before the season's over. I love everything you had to say. Yeah, Marquez is going to be a really good pitcher tomorrow. Not a lot of guys on this team have seen him. Ironically, David Bodie, very good against Marquez. He's 3 for 6 against him with 2 home runs and 4 RBIs. Jason Hayward, also very good against him, 375 average and 8 at-bats with 3 ribbies as well. And only 2 other guys have seen him on the roster, Chirinos and Happ, who are both hitless. But I'm going to go with a guy that hasn't seen him yet as my fly the W player. And I think they got to ride the hot hand with him because he came up with a big hit tonight to tie the ball game. And I'm going to go with the local Ottawa, Illinois product, Michael Hermosillo, as my fly the W player for tomorrow. I think he's going to have a good game. Maybe he puts one in the bleachers, especially if the wind's blowing out. It's supposed to be very warm the next few days here in Chicago. So the wind should be blowing out at Wrigley. And I think he's going to have a good game. And if he somehow isn't in the lineup, honorable mention, it was always an easy one, is Justin Steele. I think we're finally going to see him go maybe into the 6th inning tomorrow, depending on how efficient he is early in the game with his pitches. And then to your point, I'm intrigued to see how he pitches to this Colorado Rockies lineup tomorrow. So I would expect Trevor Story to be back in the lineup too with, righty lefty. Yeah. I'm sure we'll see him tomorrow as well. So yeah, I think that's a great way to wrap things up. I mean, what an incredible win, a huge walk-off for the Cubs, the 6-4 victory over the Rockies. And now they come back tomorrow with Justin Steele on the bump. It's going to be a fun 48 hours for Cubs fans and actually gives us something to be excited about. Also, I highly recommend to people, we do a lot of prospect talk on here. Tonight, not so much because it was a big win, but especially during losses. Be sure to be following along with Marquee this year because they are broadcasting a lot of these minor league games now the rest of the season. You'll see a lot of the South Bend Cubs. You'll see a lot of the AA Tennessee Smokies, Brendan Davis and Caleb Killian, or 2 to keep an eye on there. Might be on the roster next season, as well as the AAA Iowa Cubs and the Myrtle Beach Pelicans. So, I mean, they're they're keeping everybody in the loop with what the system has to offer. So enjoy those games. Be excited about the future, because we're going to talk a lot about that here at Cubs on Tap too. So that should supplement your viewing experience, hopefully, when we do dive into some of those guys. Like I said, Alexander Canarios, thighs, cracked coconuts. So
looking forward to that article too.
Yeah, it'll be a good one. It's taking some time. It's a lot of stuff, but it should be good. There'll be more of those too as the season rolls on, and then we'll go off season too. But nonetheless, before we get out of here, Joey, because I know people are tired of hearing my voice. They want to hear more of you because you are undefeated on Cubs on Tap. But want to remind everybody, Cubs on Tap is the official Cubs podcast of the On Tap Sports Network. You can check out all of our great work at www.ontapsportsnet.com and at ontapsportsnet on social media. We have great Cubs coverage. Obviously, listen to some of that right now. You can find the pod-specific account for Cubs on Tap. We are at Cubbies on Tap. That's Cubbies on Twitter and Instagram. I am at Loose on Tap on Twitter. Joey is at The Riot 326 on Twitter. And follow all of our other great contributors at Cody on Tap, at Joe Maris, at Juice on Tap, at Marty LaValle, and all those that do great work for the Cubs team here at On Tap Sportsnet. We've got Bears, Bulls, Blackhawks. All three of those teams are getting set to start their seasons. Bears already in preseason. Blackhawks, you'll start seeing training camp in September here. October, you'll start seeing Bulls training camp with those seasons starting a month later as well. And the Bears will already be in full swing, and Justin Fields will be on the field by then, because let's be honest, that's just what's going to happen. But be sure to listen to our guys over at Bears on Tap, Four Feathers, and Bulls on Tap as those seasons start. And yes, Cubs fans, we all have at least one fan friend that likes the White Sox. Go ahead and bring them to us too. The Sox on Tap guys do an excellent job covering the South Siders. And as Alap says here in our comments, they do have you covered with the Bears. Alap does a great job contributing to our Bears coverage here. And
Alap's articles are awesome, by the way.
Absolutely slap. And you must go check those out, because once again, we remind you, it's www.ontapsportsnet.com to check out those articles and all the other great work that our contributors do here, as well as at On Tap Sportsnet on social media. The On Tap Sports Network, go ahead and check out what's on tap in Chicago sports. Joey, it is always a pleasure, sir. Glad that we were able to keep your 4-0 perfect record alive for being a co-host on Cubs on Tap as you were tonight. And hopefully we'll see some more of you the rest of the season, and we'll get those wins going. But what do you say, man? We get out of here the only way we know how?
Go Cubs, go.
Let's go Cubbies, baby.